A very, very good Friday evening in England. You are listening to Nicky New, aka The Tramp, in a brand new show called OMG Talk Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is our first show. This show will aim to give you the OMG moments in every single conversation that we have every single week. This is the first show. So if you've made this show, congratulations, because you are actually part of the history. So as we grow stronger, you can always say to everybody, I was there, I was listening, and I was live. The show will be a weekly talk show, and we're going to be appearing on YouTube as a live stream, as we are tonight. And we're also going to be appearing on streamanity.com, which is a BSV Bitcoin platform where you can also watch videos. And eventually we'll be podcasting all episodes available that will be available online in the future. So without further ado, I suggest we just get started tonight with our talk show. And I would like to introduce a very, very special guest. Good evening. How are we?
Going well, Nicky New.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And yes, and this is the first show to ever be done. This
history.
So we're going to have a little talk tonight about some bits and pieces. And how this came about, guys, is that I was having a phone call with Sean probably about a couple of years ago. We're former work colleagues in the finance sector, and we had a phone call a couple of years ago, and we had a very in-depth conversation about a few things which I was completely unaware of that were taking place in that Sean has had to go through in his life. Firstly, Sean, very good evening to you tonight. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to talk about the big SA.
The one and only, the Rainbow Nation.
The Rainbow Nation, 25th largest country in the world.
It is.
And this is where you were born, yes?
I was born and raised for most of my life, yes.
Absolutely wonderful. And what part of South Africa is a huge place I saw on the map, by the way? Huge, isn't it?
A little bit bigger than the UK.
Much bigger than the UK for the listeners who are tuned in. Much bigger, isn't it?
But smaller than Russia.
Biggest country in Africa?
Well, maybe disputed, I think.
Disputed with who?
With a few people who believe they own more countries than they've got.
Yeah, right. Okay, I see. Interesting. And in terms of location, for me, the title speaks for itself on this one. For the people that are listening who may not know where South Africa is, the clue's in the title.
It certainly is. And I was around when the 2010 Football World Cup was supposed to be played in South Africa. And I saw what people were asking the SA Tourism Authority. Do lions roam the streets?
You're joking.
How can I get money in South Africa?
What?
It is pretty much a first world country that every now and again shows its third world roots.
Do you have electricity in South Africa?
Sometimes.
Crazy. So there are actually tourists that were concerned that there may be lions roaming around in the middle of South Africa, pretty much.
Yep, in the streets, and we do not keep them as pets.
And so how was the World Cup?
World Cup was fantastic, worked out really well. South Africa didn't do too well as a host nation, but that's the only way they qualify these days, is if they're a host nation, because they don't do it any other way.
Interesting. And is football the biggest sport there? Because I know you're a big fan of cricket, aren't you?
Cricket and the good old rugby, but football is by far the biggest sport.
Wow.
Supported by most of the nation. And most people really proud of their footballers.
That's fantastic. And when you were growing up in South Africa, did you play cricket, rugby, and football? Was it all three you played?
Yeah, forced upon you from a young age that if you don't play sport as a youngster, you're in trouble. You play virtually every sport, down to water polo, rugby, cricket, football,
Wow.
athletics, you name it, we had to do it.
Is that it? Wow. Boys and girls, all schools.
Yep. And doesn't matter whether you're physically able or not, you got out there during the winter, summer, autumn, spring, and you played your sport.
Absolutely awesome. Is that why you're so good at cricket and rugby union as well?
Yeah, ball sports are what it's all about, and you learn from a young age. And unfortunately, some people do fall by the wayside, but I wasn't going to let that happen to me.
And what's your best ever innings then as a cricket player?
131 not out.
Wow.
Not too shabby.
And you'll be telling that story for a long time?
I will. And the good thing is it came here in the UK because here the bowlers and the batsmen are a little bit easier to hit around the park.
Now, I looked at South Africa before. It says you said it's the Rainbow Nation. It's from what I can see, it's like multi-ethnic place.
Yes, very much so.
And how many languages are spoken there?
11 official.
Wow, 11 languages. And how out of these 11, how many do you speak?
I speak a whole 2, unfortunately, because I was around from a little bit further back in the day when South Africa wasn't too much of a popular place in the rest of the world. Yeah. So I had one language, which was my first language, English.
Yeah.
And then your second language was the good old Afrikaans.
Yes, Afrikaans. Now that sounds a bit Dutchy Germany to me.
Well, when you do hear it, it's pretty much Dutch.
Yeah. Wow. And can you still speak it now?
Like it's my mother tongue.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And also, when I was looking on the map, I noticed it was touching Namibia,
yep,
Botswana,
yep,
and Zimbabwe.
And don't forget Mozambique.
Yeah, Mozambique and Eswatini, is it? Swaziland?
Oh, Swaziland, yeah, that's it.
And Lesotho as well.
Lesotho.
Lesotho. Oh, I got that one wrong. Lesotho. Have you been to any of these places? Just quickly.
Yeah, luckily, most South Africans that are older than me have been to Namibia, unfortunately, but they knew it as Southwest Africa,
right?
Because we all had something called conscription in South Africa, which was national service,
right?
And everyone had to go off to the army and defend Southwest Africa from Angola, because the Angolans were being funded by the Russians, who were helping them try and take over Southwest Africa.
So you had to do this yourself, did you say?
Luckily, that war ended before I had to go in for my conscription, and I was the last intake, lucky me, before they actually cancelled conscription.
Goodness me. So you obviously know people that have been there to participate in that.
All my mates, family members, they've all seen live action, which obviously isn't nice. Lots of dead people lying around and things that come home with you, which isn't too nice.
Yeah, I can imagine this. The warfare is obviously going to cause severe social problems, isn't it? And to go and be called up and to defend that must be quite a daunting thing.
Yeah, especially when you can't get your driver's license in South Africa till you're 18 years old, but you go straight out of school. A lot of them 17 and a half years old that have got a rifle in their hand and they're shooting to kill.
Wow. Now let's move on a little bit from these surrounding countries and let's focus a bit more on South Africa, because you've had a very good experience of both South Africa and of England, where I'm talking from and we're talking from now.
Yeah.
And we've had a few conversations about some of the differences in the life, interesting conversations. That's what we're hoping to talk about tonight, is some of those things, so people can get a picture as well.
Yeah, I think what was very evident when I landed on these shores was that everyone's heard of South Africa and everyone knows about apartheid South Africa and
Mm.
the abolishment, but very few people know what it's like to actually live in the country.
Right, right. And can you tell us, what
Yeah,
were the immediate sort of things that you
yeah, I
noticed?
think first and foremost we need to say that everyone's experience is different.
Right.
So I can talk from personal experience, and the fact that I'm no longer in the country, I think, speaks volumes.
Hmm.
And there's a reason why I'm not. Unfortunately, South Africa is a very beautiful country with very warm, friendly people
Mm.
as a whole,
Mm.
as you would expect. But there is a very dark element to the country, pretty much brought about by the economic situation in South Africa, and then the vast corruption that comes with living there.
Right. That's interesting. So what is the economic situation like there, from what you can understand or
Um,
know?
well, South Africa is really rich in natural minerals, especially gold, platinum, natural gases, diamonds. So, as far as in the African situation, they should be a powerhouse.
Mm.
But unfortunately, there is now a system, in my view, that the country's getting raped by
Hmm.
the politicians,
Yeah.
people who have been given a lot of authority that really don't have the skills and expertise. And financially, South Africa is a lot weaker than it could be. Um,
And
there's things like we joked about the power, the electricity. Um, you know, the the state-run electricity supplier is pretty much bankrupt. There's power outages daily, and for a country that didn't have that in the past, it's sad to see.
like a backward step almost.
Yeah,
Obviously, yeah.
yeah, very much so.
So with this economic situation that's going down, obviously that starts to affect everything, doesn't it? And
Yeah, yeah. And the thing with a lot of the state-run facilities and services that are going down, um, it has direct impact on the people, and that direct impact, you can't speak to many South Africans that haven't been affected by crime, and unfortunately, violent crime, things that people outside of South Africa do not really hear about because the news coverage is very blasé, or as we see in England, the news carries the story about Theresa May, what she did today for tea,
yeah.
and the knighting of Andy Murray, and they're not really interested in what's happening. And that's not just England; it's around the world. They've got their own news stories, and South Africa falls on the back page, if at all.
Mm. That's. I mean, the last time I remember South Africa being in the forefront of the news was obviously this Oscar Pistorius situation,
Yeah, yeah.
and that obviously blew up quite big, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And, every South African was asked, what did they think? And, you know, and due to my personal experiences, I probably didn't conform to the general view about what happened. Um,
Okay. Wow.
yeah,
Interesting.
everyone condemned him straight away. But yeah, I've got some stories that will probably highlight why I did think differently, and not so much differently, but that think a little bit deeper and have an empathetic view. Put yourself in someone else's shoes,
Mm. Mm.
which is very hard for a European to do when they have only known protection and things that aren't considered pretty much savage. If there's something that's savage, the news grabs hold of it and it's sensationalized. And how could this happen?
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
it's a daily thing in South Africa where you you are perverted in your thoughts in the way that it becomes normality for you. It's no longer considered savage.
Goodness me. So you almost become immune to what would have one day have been a horrible situation
Yeah,
to thinking, oh, it's happened again. Okay.
it was very evident when you and I first spoke about it that you were, wow, that's
Shocked.
impossible. How can one person experience so much?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so much violence and so much, just people outside of a country like South Africa do not experience that a fraction of that violence, or they don't even hear about it as much as one person will do in their lifetime in South Africa.
Okay, so what I'll say to the viewers who are tuned in and who will be listening to this show in the future, we're just about to have a very pleasant conversation about life differences in sort of different countries, different jurisdictions. And today we're talking about South Africa, where our guest Sean has actually lived for many, many years. So welcome to the show. Sean, would you care to tell us one or two stories that sort of fit into what we're talking about right now, that these European people may not sort of understand or be aware of that's taking place?
The one thing that everyone is exposed to in South Africa, there is a high level of poverty. And when I say poverty, it comes with the lack of education as well. So those people that have nothing will do anything just to live. So that has to be taken into account.
Yeah.
And there is a difference when living in Africa, that a laugh isn't as valuable. It doesn't seem to be as valuable as what we see outside of South Africa. And when I say that, robberies here, when they reported on someone has broken into a house and they may have shown a knife to someone in the house and stolen something, but no real violence has taken place. But that is enough to devastate someone that has never experienced it. They traumatized by it, and counseling is involved and everything like that. But in South Africa, the likelihood is if someone's got a weapon, they will kill you with it. If you are in any way intimidating or just even in the wrong place, and they really need to take whatever they want to take, they will kill you for it. And it doesn't matter whether it's worth £1 or whether it's worth 200 quid, they will kill you for it. And that's the big difference.
So let me just get that clear. So there's no messing around here.
No. This is one chance.
There's no sit over there and I might have something in my pocket that could look like a gun. No. It's serious.
Yeah.
It goes off quickly.
Guns are plenty, because a lot of those are stolen in home invasions, because South Africans were allowed guns quite freely. But the illegal guns from the stealing, that's where it's gotten out of hand, is there's so many guns around. And unfortunately, policemen are killed on a daily basis for their service weapons. And I mean, if you think of just, my one experience with robberies is we were burgled 3 times within 3 years. And that is in a house that is considered safe. First of all, we were in an area that wasn't a bad area by any stretch of the imagination. But our first robbery took place.
Was this the gated community?
No, not yet. This is before we moved. First time we were burgled, the whole family was sleeping. And one of my younger girls woke up and she came down the stairs. And here were a group of people in our lounge sitting area, busy pulling all the electrical appliances out, your TV, or at that time, a video machine, DVD player, sound system, and they were just taking it. And she was obviously in a panic and got such a fright, called her sisters, and when she did that, they saw her, and they just ran out the door, grabbing whatever they could. But obviously with us sleeping, anything could have happened. So that was really scary. And within a short period of time, I mean, probably under 3 months, we were burgled for the second time in that same house.
Hold on, just going back to the first one.
Yep.
So this obviously gets reported, like in Britain.
It does.
You report it, right? Then what happens? Is it the same procedure? Is it
Well,
taken seriously? Do they have the resources?
That's where you see the difference. Is now here you will have someone come out from CRD. The people know them probably as CSR from the TV and things like that, and they would come and look for forensic evidence, fingerprints and whatever they could find. In South Africa, unfortunately, when the police arrive, they do not have any chance really of catching the burglars because the burglars are now gone, so they don't investigate. And all they're really there for is so that you can file your insurance report, that you can claim on your insurance. And they will tell you, they actually ask you, do you want us to take fingerprints or do you not want fingerprints? Because you're going to have that dust all over your house and stuck on every window in the house, and they're never going to get anything from those prints, so it's pretty much a waste of time. So they actually ask you, they don't go out there and actually do it. So that's how much it's investigated.
Wow. So now there's a second time that you're on about, and this is the same place, yes?
Same place, yeah.
Same area, same place, yeah.
I took the kids out shopping. It was a Saturday morning, and my wife wasn't feeling well that morning, so she slept in and was in the room, door closed, by herself in the house. And when I got home from shopping, which was only an hour and a half, 2 hours later, came in and everything was missing again. The door was open, the window was open, and everything was missing. And luckily she didn't wake up during that. But they had let a little child, they fitted them through the burglar guards on the window, shoved him through. He gets into the house, and then he goes to the door and opens up the door and lets everyone else in. And they had taken everything. And like I said, as a South African, you see things in a different way. And how we see it is, thank goodness you have insurance. The trauma side of it just gets pushed away. It's just considered normal that you got robbed, but thank goodness you weren't hurt in that robbery, and thank goodness you're covered with insurance. And that's a very perverse way of thinking about things.
It is. It's almost like saying just scrap the investigation. There's no point. You're not going to catch anybody, but let's get you a couple of quid back. Glad you're still alive. See you later.
Pretty much. That's the attitude.
Wow. Incredible. And so obviously when you go through something like that twice in the same area, the obvious thing to do for most people, I'm sure, would be to move on.
Exactly. So that's exactly what we did. Sold up, moved out of the house, and found a more affluent, more protected area to go and stay in. That was a gated community, 2 entrances to the place, one in, one out. Half fences, electric fences, houses all have burglar guards on, which is the norm in South Africa, security gates on the doors, internal security gate locking you away, the bedrooms away from the rest of the house so that you can sleep hopefully safe and sound. And we thought that was the right place to be. Yeah.
Well, it sounds obviously a lot more secure, doesn't it? I'm listening to you now thinking, okay, there's 2 entrances. It's absolutely great. People looking out, fantastic. What more could you wish for?
Exactly. So that safety was proved to be very false. Unfortunately, the crime, because of the area being a bit more affluent, it attracted crime. And
goodness me.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got home the one day again, and as we walked through the door, we noticed on the floor there was some half-eaten food and half a bottle of our red wine with an empty bottle next to it, and the rest of the house was in a state. Mess everywhere, papers thrown everywhere, and immediately the first thing I thought is keep the family out because I think someone's still in there. because they've left the food and they've left the drink. We've obviously disturbed them. So brave old me had to go through to the kitchen and couldn't get access to my firearm. So took a large kitchen knife, and my wife still laughs at me, a very heavy frying pan.
That's from the cricket, isn't it? You're going to hit
It
it
is.
for 6, yeah?
Just going to have a good go. And went room to room looking for someone hiding in cupboards and things like that. And I can tell you the adrenaline is pumping.
I can imagine,
and
yes.
You don't want to find someone, but the anger, you do want to find someone. And luckily, going through the house, there wasn't anyone left in the house. House safe. Phone the police again, get them over there. Luckily, my firearm was locked away in a safe, so they couldn't get to that. But the policemen that came round, 2 of them, same story. Do you want us to send round the CSIs, get the fingerprints and everything? Said no ways. Asked if I had a firearm, if the firearm was safely secured, which I said, yeah, it is. And he said, tell you what, if ever you do have to use that firearm, just make sure that you kill the person. And I said, sorry? He said,
what?
Make sure he's dead. He says, and if you shoot him outside your house, make sure you pull him into the house. He says, tell you what, dead people do not talk. So he cannot contradict your story. And that is coming from the policeman.
That's crazy.
Now, a little bit earlier, you mentioned Oscar Pistorius.
Yes.
And having those words from a policeman and saying you've got an intruder, and if you've got a gun, shoot to kill. It just casts a little bit of a different light on what Oscar did. If his story was true, which that is the big if, was he thinking, I'm going to not allow this person to get to me? I'm going to shoot to kill?
Possibly. I think some people might argue that his legal team have possibly dreamt up that one as a defence, as a possible get out. Because by the way you're speaking, you could almost say it's a paranoid. It sounds like a paranoid environment.
It's a paranoid society, and unfortunately, when you do have a firearm, there's going to be a few of those things that are going to happen. Unfortunately, there was a really famous, when I say famous, he was famous in South Africa because he was capped as a Springbok rugby player. He played for many years, but he only played a couple of games once South Africa's readmitted to the world stage.
Yeah.
And he was staying very close to where we were staying. And one day heard a noise outside by his car, thought the car was getting robbed, saw someone and shot. And he actually shot his daughter.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean,
let me just stop. You can't get more paranoid than that.
No.
No.
And there he was trialed the same way Oscar was. He was charged with manslaughter, and the court actually let him off without any punishment because they said he has to live with the death of his daughter for the rest of his life. So, there's tragedies like that shouldn't happen.
That is absolutely incredible information. Just want to say, ladies and people who are watching, listening to the show, watching on YouTube, listening on Streamanity, we're just having a conversation about South Africa, the differences between living in somewhere like that compared to living somewhere like Britain, where I'm from. And Sean's kindly telling us some incredible stories that he's been through. So if you want to talk to us in the chat box, please let us know what you think. If you've got anything you want to ask about South Africa in there, please ask any questions you want. Sean, this is absolutely crazy. So this guy, he ends up not even getting any prison time for this because it was deemed as
punishment,
an injustice.
Enough.
An injustice that he would have to actually suffer.
Yeah,
because of the shoot to kill situation.
And I must say, if that was me, I wouldn't want that torture every day. it would be a horrible way to live.
No, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Damn.
But I do have some more exciting stories if you've got the will to live through some more.
I definitely have. Yeah, let us know more. Definitely, carry on.
Well, story number 2 is probably also sums up the living situation in South Africa, and affected us as a family because my brother was involved and his family. One night when we just celebrated my cousin's 21st birthday, and he was on his way home. Unfortunately, they lived up in Gauteng, which is the crime hotspot in South Africa, where most crimes happen and most violence. And he was on his way home, and he had to drive through an area called Diepsloot, which is a informal settlement.
Right.
And the informal settlement is a really horrible place for people to stay. Okay. They just claim a huge area of land and they start building shacks. So there's no electricity until someone steals electricity from the main line. And that stealing is someone actually throws a cable over a live wire and then distributes that to everyone else that's close by. So you can imagine how many people get fried as they do that.
Yeah, nice and safe, yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, back to the story, he was driving home the one night and he got to what they call a 4-way stop in South Africa, where there's no traffic lights, there's just four stop streets. And while he stopped waiting to see if there was any traffic before he could pull off again, he was hit from behind by another car quite hard.
Oh no.
And him and his wife immediately panicked because they had their 2 boys who were sleeping in the back. It was an estate vehicle, a VW Golf estate. So they were sleeping in the area at the back. And obviously the back had just been hit now and crumpled. So they panicked and jumped out the car and rushed to the back and saw the 2 boys lying there, managed to get the one boy out the broken window. And the second one, he was trapped in there with his head trapped in the crumpled metal. And they couldn't see how badly damaged he was. But obviously they couldn't just rip him out. So they're trying to get him out frantically to see if he's okay. Yeah. And while they were doing this, they didn't see that people from that informal settlement had opened the car doors. And he's also got twin girls who were only young at that stage, probably, I don't know, about 6 years old or something, maybe younger. Yeah. And people took them out of the car and started to carry them off into the darkness of the night towards the informal settlement.
Goodness me.
So they had to make a decision there and then whether to try and continue to see if they could save the boy or go and grab their daughters.
Goodness me.
And they rushed off into the night and grabbed the kids back. And while they were busy running off away from the car was looted. Took all their valuables, everything like that out the car.
Unbelievable.
They got back to the car, continued to get the other boy out. They managed to get him out. Luckily, no serious damage done to him. And then they focused on what had happened behind them. And they looked in the car of the guy that had just hit them. And it was a drunk driver who couldn't even get out the car at that stage. He was so drunk. And that being said, he then saw that parked on the corner was an emergency services vehicle with a bunch of emergency services guys sitting in there. Fire department, they had all the equipment to get the boy out. They had all the equipment to treat injuries, and they had done nothing. They were still sitting in the vehicle. So
why were they sitting there, by the way?
Here it comes. This is the kicker. So he went over to them and obviously wasn't happy. Said to them, "Why aren't you helping? You guys are here to help.
Yes.
And the answer to him was, sorry, we're here for stabbings and shootings that may happen on a Friday night because people drink at the informal settlement. So that's our job. We look after stabbings and shootings.
So just so I can get this clear for myself and for the viewers, the emergency services pretty much saw what was going on
And didn't lift a
and
finger.
sat there,
Yep.
radio on,
And couldn't give a
reminiscing
hoot.
about yesteryear, having a conversation in the car, um, you know, listening
So,
to the cricket, were doing whatever they were doing, but what they weren't doing was actually helping
yep,
this situation at all. Is that correct?
that's
There,
it. Spot on.
unbelievable.
So
Wow.
they said they would help, and the help they offered was they would call the police. So they did. The police arrived. My brother made sure that the other driver didn't go anywhere. Not that he could have because he was so drunk. They loaded him into the back of the police van and took my brother's statement. Started asking him a lot of questions about was he at fault, bearing in mind that he's been hit from the back. What was his blood alcohol level like? And a whole lot of very threatening, ominous questions.
Yeah.
And this went on for a little bit. And about half an hour later, when they saw in the back of the police van, the driver was gone, disappeared. They'd let him out. So that meant no blood alcohol levels could be checked, nothing could be done, and the guy was free as a bird. So nothing ever came of that.
Oh my goodness me.
And that, unfortunately, is a little bit of what happens in South Africa.
So you can't even be guaranteed then that the emergency services will be there for you in terms of in distressing situations. It's just, this is crazy, man.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a very big divide between private medical or emergency services and your government medical services. And you'll find that your private medical services, first of all, they will only help you if you have got something equivalent to private medical insurance called a medical aid in South Africa, because they want to make sure that they will be paid. So if you can't furnish them with proof that you are on a medical aid, they will just stabilize you and ship you off to the state. And unfortunately, the state is far underfunded, and many people will die from very, very minor injuries that could quite easily be saved. So,
wow. I mean, for the people who are listening to this information who haven't experienced an environment like that, this is probably quite a shocking situation, and for them to listen to and even try and understand. I mean, the only sort of experience I've had, if you don't mind me telling you,
yeah, put in.
is, when I went to visit my friend in Jamaica. Now, when I went to Jamaica, I didn't go to the touristy part, the Montego Bay and that type of place. I was actually in a place called Spanish Town, which is right in there, with pretty much Jamaican people and Jamaican environment. And the person who I was staying with had already told me that there was risks associated with, similar to what you're saying, actually, with things like guns and poverty affecting the situation, and things being slightly rougher, a lot rougher than what I'm actually used to being from Britain. Anyway, this one day we were near a place called Halfway Tree Road, and we ended up going to get some petrol, right? And he said to me, right, just usual Nick, stay here, don't do anything, just stay here, right? Okay, see you later, dude. So off he went, and he's off paying for the petrol now. And I'm in this forecourt inside this car on the outside of the forecourt, and I'm waiting for him to come back after he's paid for the petrol. That's the situation I'm in now. Then I hear a bang, as in a bang that sounds like a gun.
Okay.
And because maybe it's not because I'm British, but because I'm not used to that situation, I can no longer look left. And this is not me. this is not how I am. I could no longer look left because in my mind, I was thinking, if I look left, there's going to be a guy stood there with a gun. Right?
Heart pounding.
Yeah, my heart, for me, it was a very frightening situation because I couldn't even look to the left because I was too frightened to look left, because I knew in my mind, I was like, right, as soon as I look left, there's going to be a gun pointing at me through the window, because I've just heard a gunshot in my mind. I've just heard a gun. Anyway, about 2 minutes after that, he jumps back in the car. He says, "You're right." I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, that motorbike just blew out."
Careful those darn motorbikes.
Yeah, unbelievable. Can I just say, we've got a couple of people listening tonight. We've got Batswinger, who's absolutely shocked by your stories, by the way. And we've also got someone called Cal L, who says, "Why did your brother go after the twins and not stay to tend to his son? Surely the people were just trying to get the girls to safety."
Unfortunately,
No, man.
You can't make that decision when you're that panicked.
Not to safety. They weren't being led to safety. But if I think you might have missed the story, Cal, because the emergency services were actually sat near the vicinity of where this took place. Okay, and the place where they were being walked to was towards the darkness.
Exactly.
So I don't think they were being led to safety, Cal. But thanks for the comment. Yeah, so that was just something I wanted to share there with you to sort of give you an idea of how paranoid I became in a place like that.
Well, that's it. The paranoia is a danger. Everything that you want to believe is good gets taken from you, and that's unfortunately the mindset of a lot of damaged South Africans. And a lot of people say, well, it's only a certain aspect of South Africans that have got that view, and unfortunately the crime affects everyone. Doesn't matter who you are in that rainbow nation, that crime affects everyone.
Well, the statistics, when I was looking at some of the statistics on South African crime, the statistics are horrendous, actually.
Yeah, it's scary, and there's big debate about what is the murder and rape capital of the world, and Colombia comes up, and Venezuela, and all these countries that have got a lot of drug ties to them. Yes. But South Africa is always in those top three, whether you're talking rape or murder. They are right up there, and that's a very sad statistic, and you don't want to top the tables in that.
But then this is the thing, though. I mean, you have when you say things like that, which we can come back to, of course. But then there's also another side to South Africa, this lovely, fantastic lifestyle, barbecues that you talk about, and things like that. And can you tell us
just remember,
about the lifestyle?
Just remember, Nick, as a South African, I couldn't let you get away with that. In South Africa, barbecue is a chip flavour or a crisp flavour. In South Africa, we braai.
Braai. We braai. We don't barbecue in South Africa. We braai.
So
what sort of meats would you use on a braai that we're not really accustomed to in Britain? Is there any differences?
All the wild game, your kudu, your blesbok, I can't even remember. Some people even love crocodile these days.
Wow.
So a lot of exotic meats, a lot of wild game. But there you have to have something called boerewors and your biltong and druiwors.
I've tried that. I've tried boerewors. That for me is delicious. That's a sausage almost, isn't it? But with a very distinct flavour.
Yeah, and roll your R's. Say boerewors.
Boerewors. Eh? Cool, I'm turning myself on here. Boerewors.
There you go, Tramp. That's the way to do
it. Braai, braai. So we want the Batswinger says braai is how we roll in our country. I hear you, Batswinger. I hear you. All right, I hear you. We hear you loud and clear. So braai. I mean, have you said anything close to a braai in England since you've been here?
Yeah, of course. We braai in winter, summer, spring, and autumn. Brilliant. The only time that we have it something close is when we do it, and one of these days you're going to experience it. So just sit back and relax.
Oh, I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome.
And when do we move on to the really big story, number 3?
Well, you know what? After all this talk about braais, why not do it right here, right now? Let's do story number 3.
Okay, this one, I think if anyone is squeamish, they need to to turn off their earphones or their speakers now, because this is the one that made us decide that South Africa is no longer for us. And you can imagine when you're going to leave the country of your birth behind, it's got to be something that is just enough. Something is broken in you to want to leave all your history and everything behind.
So, okay, so for the listeners, this is it now. We're about to hear a story which led this guest of ours to leave the country that he actually loves. Tell us, fire away. Let's talk.
Well, after we were burgled in that very affluent, safe spot, there was something that was just too much to handle, really. And I think I got to start with a little story about my best mate at the time. You mentioned we met through financial services, and South Africa is in financial services as well. And I met a really good mate who was a broker at the time, and we became very good friends. And we had the same interests and same sense of humor, pretty similar in ages. And it turned out that eventually I was 4 houses away from him at that time.
Excellent.
So, yeah, we used to braai at each other's places and celebrate birthdays and all those types of things.
Awesome.
And because the crime was getting so bad, he thought he had to do something about it. And he started a text service in the community where he said to everyone that he met, because he spoke to everyone at the shops and anything that he saw, someone, a familiar face or whatever, he would just say, give me your number, your mobile number, and I'll put it on a database where I will send any updates as far as crime goes, or better still, we can virtually track crime live.
Wow.
Where, if someone says in this street they have just seen someone suspicious or someone running from a house or whatever, they can text the description of the person, where they are, and the community can actually be policed live.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea, isn't it?
Yeah, and he started it off just casually, and as time went on, this grew because there was such a need for it, that in South Africa you didn't get something like unlimited text on your mobile contracts. So he had to pay per text, and the texts were just getting out of hand. He was sending hundreds of texts per week, and it was costing him an absolute fortune.
Right.
And it was keeping him busy. He was getting detracted from his work. So he said, just to keep him going, he would charge a nominal fee to everyone that was on his database. And almost everyone agreed. And those that didn't agree, he didn't charge them. He still kept them on just for the good of the community. But it became such a good money spinner for him that he actually gave up broking. So you can imagine that there was so much crime in the small community that he was sending so many texts, and so many people believed that this was working, that he formed a business out of it.
Wow.
But Nick, you know what you like. You haven't changed as far as your values go. You and I are normal people. Violence, you don't want to see violence because it's not nice. It's not nice. So he's like you and me. So keep that in mind, that he is just a normal person, not trained by the police, not accustomed to violence and anything like that. So where the story really starts is one day he got a call from his neighbor across the road. He was at work, and he said, look, my wife has been trying to call me, but I've been in meetings, so I've just picked up voice messages, and she is frantic. She's been screaming that she needs help.
Right.
Now, she's at home. 2 months ago, she had a little one. She's on maternity leave, so not a good situation already.
Right.
So he said, look, can you just go across the road, you right there, and see if you can see what's happening, if everything's okay, and just ask her how she is. So he goes across, grabs his stuff, runs across the road, which isn't too far, minute later, he's at the house and he sees the front doors being forced open.
Right.
And he goes into the house calling her name, and he sees the security gate to the bedrooms is locked. And he looks down the passage and he just sees blood everywhere.
Right.
So much blood you cannot imagine.
Oof.
And he sees a body lying in the blood.
Right.
And with that, a hole in the ceiling, because in South Africa you've got what they call trapdoors, which give you access like the loft to your roof.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you've got a metal security door down the passage, which is pretty secure, but your roof is just very soft and flimsy. And someone had gone through the trapdoor and then broken through the roof in the bedroom. And he managed to get into the bedroom, and he found the guy's wife lying there. She had been stabbed 47 times with varying kitchen knives as well as the garden shears. And the little baby lying there in the blood, just crying.
Still alive, obviously.
Still alive.
Crying yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and now you can imagine he's greeted with that scene.
That's horrible.
And he had to pick the baby up, call the police, or he had called the police before he went in. So the police were pretty quickly, the armed response teams were out there. And he says that for the first time ever he had seen, the first policeman on the scene broke down in tears. That's how bad the scene was.
That's just crazy.
And policemen in the South African police force are hardened. They've seen a lot of things. And
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to hear that. To be honest, I mean, I know you get kind of with what you see, it gets watered down, but I'm not surprised that he would break down to that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the worst of it was the story that eventually came out is she had a gardener that was working for, well, the family had a gardener that was working for them, a young guy.
Right.
And he wasn't doing the work like they wanted to, so they asked him to leave. And he didn't take that well. So he came back and he tried to force her to give him money, and she declined.
Right.
And that's when he went into a fit of rage and everything happened. Right. That he obviously tried to get to her, and she ran and locked herself in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Made the frantic phone calls to try to get hold of her husband, which she couldn't get hold of him.
Yeah.
And the guy stabbed her 47 times. From there, he fled. They couldn't track him for a full year, and eventually he showed up at his mother's house, and the mother just did the right thing, and she called the police and handed him over. And
so it was known that he had done it, but he was on the run.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So everyone knew. The local community didn't know where he was. He didn't go back there, but as soon as he did, his mother did the right thing and called the police, and they came and arrested him. The magistrate was so appalled by what he had done. He did give a sob story that he didn't do what they said. He said things like he had also hit her with a big wrench, and he said he hit her once, whereas the autopsy showed he had hit her a few times.
Yeah.
And he said that he's only stabbed her once or twice, and obviously the autopsy showed something different. So they were so appalled by it that the minimum sentence they could give is 15 years, and the magistrate gave him 30 years, with the first chance of parole in 20 years.
Right.
But still, the husband and the child immigrated, so the South African family are left without their daughter, first of all, They left without their grandchild, and they left without their family. So, it destroys lives. And because it was so close to us, and the story was so in depth and first-hand delivery to us, my wife and I just said, we've got children and we can't do this anymore. We just can't. And that was where we took the very tough decision to move.
Wow.
And it's incredible. A sad thing.
It is a sad thing. I mean, thanks for sharing that with us. The viewers and I, we appreciate that story. It's unreal story. I've personally not heard many stories like that. That's absolutely crazy. And I'm not surprised you would want to leave, having your own family and stuff. Surely you've got to think to yourself, now's the time. And I did read somewhere that a lot of South Africans do say that crime is one of the major factors which makes them leave, if they do leave. There's obviously a lot of South Africans who love the country and are very happy there. But from what I was reading before, it suggested that a lot of South Africans do actually emigrate because of the crime.
Yeah, it's a sad statistic, but it's very true. And certainly true in my case. As I say, there's still a lot of South Africans that maybe will be up in arms with me being so damning of my experiences.
Yeah.
But they are real to me, and they're personal to me. They've affected me in ways that have affected my life, my family's life.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah. As Batswinger has just said in the comments there, and Cal E is one of our viewers. He's actually crying right now at that story.
Sad.
It is a sad story, guys. Yeah. So, we're trying to do today is just have a discussion regarding differences in the life of living somewhere like South Africa. And this is like Shauna said at the start of the show, is just sharing his own personal experiences. We're not speaking for the whole country because it's such a big country anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we just, because I was so shocked at the initial stories when we first met and stuff. I mean, we sort of established that people over here in Europe are a bit naive to places like Brazil, South Africa, and even Jamaica, what I spoke about, and things that might be going on elsewhere in the world. That is absolutely so. You must feel so safe in England.
You can't believe it. That paranoia doesn't leave you though.
Really?
We were the only people on the street that were still locking our windows when we went to bed at night and wondering why. What are all these locals doing that don't close their windows at night and lock the doors? And that never leaves you. Walking in the street with a mobile or having jewelry on that is easily accessible to someone that can run past, just rip it off you.
So your common sense is still on high alert, basically.
All the time. That does not leave you. And you think about it, that might be a safer way of doing things, but how many people in Europe think like that?
Not many.
The funnier side of things that you can say are funny is the one story when I was parked at a traffic light, or what we call a robot still in South Africa, and everyone goes, what the heck is a robot?
Yeah.
But stopped at the traffic light in the city centre,
right?
And I was sitting with a mate, and we just saw these two tourists with a big either Konica or Canon camera around their neck, and they stopped a local in the street and gave him the camera. And you could see they were asking, please, could you take a photo of us? And they stood together, hugging and grinning and smiling. And the guy with the camera was telling them to move back a bit, just go further back. And we were sitting in the car, and we were just thinking, this can't be happening.
Yeah.
And when those tourists got a suitable distance, you just saw Usain Bolt move with the speed of lightning with the camera.
Oh, that's the oldest trick in the book, man. I mean, how can you just go back a little bit more?
But that is the mentality. You're so trusting that people will do the right thing.
Yeah.
Whereas South Africans are a little bit more, I don't know about you.
I think I'll hold on to my camera. I think I'll take a selfie. you know.
South Africans invented selfies because they wouldn't give it up.
Well, I have to say, you know, when I first met my mate Kurt, the Jamaican guy, when it was the 5th of November, he wasn't aware of it, and the first time he heard the fireworks, he jumped on the floor. He heard a little crack, and down he went. And we were like, mate, it's all right. You know, it's in Wales.
There's
you're
not
not
many
going to get
guns
shot
there.
around here, mate. Poor sod. So, you know what I mean? It's silly, really, but we laugh at that now. But it's not actually that funny, because you think, damn, he's jumping on the floor, because usually when he hears that noise, you have to jump on the floor or run.
Well, you know, we have always been of the persuasion that if you hear the noise, you're okay.
Bloody hell. I mean, I suppose, I mean, you know, we're starting to put a bit of a sense of humour towards it now in a funny sort of way, like you said, halfway through the show. But I mean, again, I've heard my friend say similar things. He said, you've just got to get on with it and accept it. It's part of the life.
Yep.
You know, and things could go off. I mean, if I wanted to walk to the shops now, you know, it's 20 past 10. If I wanted to walk to the shops any time between now and, say, 4 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't be worried at all. I'd put my headphones in.
Yep.
You know, take my time, relax, have a nice stroll. But in certain places in the world, you don't go strolling around at 4 in the morning.
No, and South Africa is one of them. And, you know, part of my job, I travel a bit. And it was so funny that I met a paramedic who's in the British Army, a young lady that was sitting in the seat next to me, and we just got talking about I was flying to Gibraltar.
Yeah.
And she was just saying she's going to Gibraltar for some downtime because she had come back from Afghanistan.
Right.
And she was going to do some downtime in Gibraltar and then get back on the horse. And when she heard my accent, she said, "Are you from South Africa?" So I said, "Oh, yeah." You know, a lot of people get me confused. They call me Australian and New Zealand, and I get a little bit upset with them. But, you know, you got it right first time. She says, "Yeah, because I spent a bit of time in South Africa." So I said, "Oh, where did you stay?" So she said, "Up in Gauteng." And I said, "Oh, why you go up there?" So she says, No, it was part of the training that they do as a medic in the British Army. They got to spend 3 months in the public hospital in Gauteng, where they have to attend to emergency situations with trauma, things like stabbings. And when I say stabbings, stabbed with what they call assegais, stabbed with machetes.
Yeah, machetes are bad, you know. People
with machetes still stuck in their skull.
Yeah.
That walk in.
Yeah.
And need to get stuff like that. That walk in. She says it is the only place in the world where you can get such good trauma training in such a short space of time that will equip you for what you see on the battlefield.
That is just mental. That's absolutely mental. So they've identified that particular hospital as the perfect place to train because of the sheer amount and volume of traumatic injuries that are coming in.
Baragwanath Hospital. You don't want to be there on a weekend, especially.
Oof. And the hospitals, on the subject of the hospitals out there, I mean, you've seen English hospitals before, British ones, and you've seen African hospitals. Can you compare the two? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, strangely enough, the private hospitals in South Africa are better than anything you'll find in the UK. Better.
Right.
But your state hospitals, just as an indication, this is where the financial background comes from, 70% of the South African healthcare spend is spent on 30% of the population.
Right.
That other 30% funding is what the state funds, and they look after 70% of the population. So you can imagine what the difference in services and equipment and care is like.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, personally, my wife has lost 2 family members, her father and her grandmother, who were in hospital. Her father did have a heart attack, but he is coming through it. But just through simple negligence in the aftercare, he still passed away. And her grandmother, it was something as simple as turning the oxygen on in the oxygen mask. They actually suffocated there because they put the oxygen mask on and didn't turn the oxygen on.
It's real schoolboy types of mistakes. Is that fair?
Yeah, and it's just because the facilities cannot keep up with the demand. And if you think the NHS is under pressure, you can just imagine what it's like to be in a state hospital. And that's why a lot of the nurses here in the UK are South African nurses, because they love the job. They just can't do it in South Africa.
Yeah. Bit too much. Yeah. Absolutely crazy. So you've given us a real, how can I put it? I have learnt today things about South Africa, sides of South Africa that I had no clue what were going on, really. And I just want to make it clear to the viewers that we both understand that there is a very positive and nice life there as well, amongst all of the stuff we're talking about. We did mention this, didn't we, in our private conversations? You know, nice place, you know, incredible people. I mean, I've met a few South African people before, and I somehow, I don't know, tend to get on really well with South African people, you know.
You know, that's the bulk of South Africans, is we are friendly, approachable people. And with an exchange rate of 18 Rand to £1, you know, I've yet to come across a Brit that has holidayed in South Africa and said, I'm never going back there. You know, if they have been affected by crime, which as a tourist, you could be affected by crime in any country. But generally speaking, I have not come across a Brit that has said they do not fall in love with the country, the beauty, you know, the food, the culture, everything is just, it's a different world.
So if you were advising a British person who was going to go to South Africa, where would you say you must do this? What is the must do's? Just give us a few little things that you've got.
The must do's is stick to the coast. The Cape has got unbelievable beauty, and I'm sure everyone will love the wine lands because you can go on so many wine tours and all that. But if you love the water, as beautiful as Cape Town is, on the east coast, Durban has got the Indian Ocean with waves that you can ride as a surfer or bodyboarder, and you can be in the water all year round with sandy beaches, none of this stone rubbish.
All you surfers out there, do you hear this? Get yourself out there to South Africa and go and have a surf. It sounds absolutely awesome. And I bet that water is crystal clear and warm, beautiful as well, isn't it?
Maybe not.
So when you go to the coast in England, though, you must look at it and shrug and think, "Oh, what is this?"
I do miss it. You know, British beaches. First of all, those that you can find with sand, and then there's no waves. That's not the sea. That's just a lake.
Yeah, if you're coming to England, don't expect you know, lovely beaches and cracking weather all year round. It's not going to happen, man, is it? You know.
No, that week of summer is awesome. It really is.
When it gets to 23 degrees? Yeah.
Yeah.
And how hot does it? Summer's December for you guys, or something like that, isn't it?
That's right. So Christmas is whenever you see on TV and they having snowball fights and snowmen and all that. That's not South Africa. Your Christmas is cooking hot, barbecues if you're really that laid back about Christmas. But normally you have a good traditional meal of turkey and all those meats that are under the sun. You have them at Christmas.
It's roasting hot as well.
Roasting hot. Time. 30 plus degrees, and you've got yourself a nice day.
That sounds awesome. Well, listen, we are approaching 10:30 on a Friday night, man. What do you reckon? What do you say, man? It's 10:30, mate. Should we begin to wrap things up?
Yeah, I think I've spread enough doom and gloom, but hopefully I haven't made everyone too negative. Just
it was awesome. It was awesome.
What we wanted to accomplish, I think, is just that you know, you got to enjoy the safety, which I think is taken for granted in the European countries, especially. You know, there's just this element that you will be safe and enjoy that. Not everyone has it.
Yeah. Well, I cannot thank you enough for sharing those stories with us. They're absolutely awesome stories and shocking stories as well. And hopefully people will listen to them stories and it will give them a depiction of what takes place, what can take place in a country like South Africa. And I'm hoping for the South African people that will eventually listen to the show that we've actually given a fairly positive representation.
Yeah, the stories are mine, so no one else steal them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure if we could get some comments going after the fact, after people have listened,
Yeah.
we will read the comments. If people could give some positive spins and say,
Definitely.
I love the country. My experience is different.
Yeah.
Whatever, and we'd love those comments.
Exactly right. Well, thank you so much for your talking today. This is the OMG show, episode 1. Thank you for everyone who's actually come to listen to the show today. I've just seen Sir Toshi V has come to watch today. I watch your show, Sir Toshi V, and I think you're absolutely awesome. So thanks for coming in tonight. I want to say thank you for Cal L, who's been listening to these stories. Cal, thank you for coming in for the first show. And Bat Swinger, you've been very vocal tonight. Well done, Bat Swinger. We want you back for more. This is the OMG show. Every single week, I want to bring you something crazy. It's not always going to be shocking. It's not always going to be sad. But in one way, shape, or form, you will get OMG. If you enjoyed this content tonight, guys, do us a favor. Press the like and press the subscribe. And if there's anyone who's got an OMG story that you want to share or you want to tell that you think that the viewers would enjoy, you can email me at omgtalkshow@gmail.com. I want to wish every single person a fantastic evening. Thank you for everything, and we'll see you for the next show. Take it easy.